you can't snake-proof your yard, okay? You can do things to reduce snakes wanting to come to your yard, but you're still going to occasionally have a snake wander through there. And most people will say, well, I don't ever see snakes here. Well, this is because you don't ever see them, okay? Yeah. They're there. And so you got a snake there and you want him gone. Well, I recommend just leaving him alone, and he'll leave on his own anyway.
That's most of the time that's the case. You've got to remember, most of the snakes you're going to see are going to be non-venomous snakes anyway.
Yeah.
They pose absolutely no danger to any humans or pets. Those snakes can certainly just be left and to crawl away on their own. They're actually good to have around.
But what about the people who say the only good snake's a dead snake? Okay, because, if you don't like snakes and don't want to learn about them, then go buy a bunch of snake repellent and put it around your house. It's not going to do anything, but it'll make you feel better, okay? If you want to learn about snakes and you still don't want them around, then that's a good thing. We can teach you how to get rid of them. So snake repellent does not work. I don't care what brand it is. Mothballs, lime, sulfur. They say sulfur stinks, so it'll make the snakes go away. You'd have to put out so much sulfur that you couldn't even live in your house.
Yeah.
And lime, they say it burns their bellies. It does not burn their bellies. Mothballs, it's illegal to put mothballs on the ground.
That's an off-label use.
Yeah.
Mothballs.
And the reason is because mothballs have a couple chemicals in them that are really dangerous. One is called naphthalene, and which has been shown to cause cancer. If you put that in your house or in your yard and you're inhaling that, that's not a good thing.
Right. It's
not going to repel snakes. Okay.
Yeah.
But here's what they do. People put this stuff out, and then because they've seen a snake, okay, and then the snake crawls off, or they kill it or whatever. Then they put out their snake repellent, whatever chemical
and then they don't
use.
see one for 6 months.
Exactly, and it works. And then when they see one, what do they think?
I need to put out more.
It's time to reapply it because this is not effective anymore. And people so believe it works, and these companies can't quit selling it because it makes too much money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so if someone's trying to sell you snake repellent, they either don't know what they're doing or they're trying to rip you off. That's it. When there's something that works, the back of that venom van will be stocked with it, okay? And I will try to sell it to everybody. I wish there was something. I can make a lot of money off of it. There's not right now.
Right. It's the best thing, like you said earlier, the best thing to do is just to make your yard as inhospitable to snakes as possible. Now, that's the opposite of what I normally tell people to do. Not just for snakes, but other wildlife. The things you do to attract wildlife to your yard aren't exclusive to the animals you like. You have a bird feeder that also attracts rats and mice and other things snakes like to eat. You have a water feature, a little frog pond or something that attracts things snakes like to eat. Having a lush garden full of native wildflowers, that's a good place for snakes to hide. So just understand that those, you can't really separate the two, but do the opposite of all that. You got a web page, right? That outlines some ways to keep your
guide to a snake-free yard. And it can be things as simple as leaving your porch light on at night. I recommend leaving your porch light on because it deters burglars. A house that's lit up well is less likely to be burglarized, but a porch light attracts moths and insects, and that attracts lizards and frogs and toads, and those attract snakes that like to eat lizards, frogs, and toads. So that can be a thing. But one problem, and I see at houses all the time, and I think this is something really important, is when I'm walking up to someone's front door and I'm on the sidewalk, and on each side of the sidewalk is beautifully manicured, these wonderful plants, but they're really thick. And if I was a snake, I could so easily hide underneath there. And so when you got to think, these snakes want to come out in the evenings and hunt, and they'll come out of those bushes, lay on the edge of that warm concrete, and if you're walking, talking on your cell phone, you may not see the copperhead you're about to step on. So if you have overgrown vegetation, make sure it's not near walkways. Put it way over there. And then you're like, oh, that's where the snakes live, way over there, okay? They don't live right here at your door.
Right.
Because you don't want to walk out, step off your step, and step onto a venomous snake.
Right. Yeah, and, the trimming, going along with those gardens and hedges is the kind of ground cover you use. Like if you mulch your flower beds, what you choose to mulch with can attract snakes. Like pine straw is a really attractive thing to snakes, like we've talked about. It's easy for them to get under it and travel under it.
Yeah, you know, I don't ever recommend using pine straw on your flower beds because it doesn't attract snakes per se. Snakes don't say, oh, there's pine straw over here, let's go there. Right. But when they find it, it's a hiding place because they can burrow underneath it and crawl where they want to go. So I tell people, instead of pine straw, use bark, mulch, or rock, which those don't repel snakes, but it's harder for at least copperheads and venomous snakes to burrow underneath it, so that you're eliminating a hiding place by getting rid of the pine straw.
Right.
Same thing with leaf litter. You got leaves all piled up. You know, some people will go out and they'll trim branches and they'll just pile them up in one area.
Kind of like I did in my front yard.
That's a great thing to do if you like snakes. Okay,
there's a brush pile right over there.
Yeah. So I've got those too, but we like snakes. So if you don't like snakes, stop building snake houses for them. All right. Yep. Now another thing that's good is if you go outside, there's a snake on your porch or on your sidewalk or your driveway. You know, one thing, just grab your water hose and just spray it with your water hose. That's usually enough to make it just crawl away.
All right.
Come on, snake. Get out of here. It's not going to get mad at you and come attack you. That's not going to happen. But just spray it and it'll just kind of go away. But one problem that I hear a lot of people talk about is they will go out and they'll see. Now I keep talking about copperheads because we get a lot of copperheads. But whether it's a copperhead, a rattlesnake, a cottonmouth, any venomous snake, they'll just want to kill it and they'll say, well, you know, I only kill the bad snakes. Well, in my opinion, there are no bad snakes, but there are people who don't understand snakes. And they're like, well, you know, is the copperhead here? If I kill it, I know it's dead. But the problem with that, it's having a copperhead in your yard tells you have suitable habitat for copperheads. So, and these copperheads have several acres of their home range, and all these home ranges of different copperheads overlap each other. So one day you might have one copperhead in your yard, the next week you may not have any, and the next week you might have 5.
Right.
The numbers go up and down. So going out in your yard and killing a copperhead, all that really does is put that person at risk for getting bit, because most bites happen when a person's trying to kill or catch a snake to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and I've heard people say, well, I'm not going to get close to it, I'm going to shoot it. There have been not just injuries, but fatalities from people shooting at snakes and not being aware of where the projectile's going.
There's a story on my website of a police officer shooting a snake
in Oklahoma,
and in the process he killed a 5-year-old boy.
I remember that.
Yeah.
That, you know, people have had, you know, anytime you're shooting, and also, let's be honest, people can't shoot real well, so you're going to miss it most of the time.
I just posted on our Facebook a guy trying to shoot a copperhead. He missed several times. And then I started looking, and there's bullet holes all in his metal shed. His wife was furious at his lack of aim.
When a bullet hits the ground, even if it doesn't ricochet wholly, the jacket, the copper coating explodes off of it.
Yeah.
And there's fragments of metal going everywhere. And that's,
somebody's shooting now.
Yeah, that's.
I bet it's a snake.
That's my neighbor dumping a magazine off in the woods over there. We live in the country, y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, you know, that even that's not as safe as you would think, and then certainly getting close enough to try and dispatch it with a machete or whatever is even more so.
Because then, you know, an injured venomous snake is worse than just a regular old venomous snake in your yard.
I guarantee you.
And you know, one thing I want to point out too is people will often tell me, "Oh my gosh, I just saw a copperhead in my yard. I'm freaking out. I've got kids, I've got dogs, I've got this and that." Well, one thing is, if you have dogs, enroll them in SnakesSchool.com, and we teach dogs what a snake is, how a snake smells, and that your dog should stay away from it. So SnakesSchool.com. But here's the most important thing. If you have, let's say, an adult copperhead, how long can a copperhead live? 10, 20 years, maybe more?
Mean, you know, yeah, probably 10 to 20 years would be a pretty good life for a copperhead.
And so here's the thing about that. So let's say you got a copperhead that's 10 years old, and you go out in your yard and you see this adult copperhead. Well, that copperhead didn't just crawl there from 2 states away. He's been here in your yard, or at least adjacent to your yard,
For
back
years,
and forth for
probably.
years, and this is the first time you've ever seen it.
I tell people that, and they either, it gives them the willies, knowing that there's so many snakes living that they haven't seen. But really, you could find comfort in that, and that, you know, he's really not been a problem. He just got really unlucky that day.
He got unlucky because the copperhead, the rattlesnake, the cottonmouth, their main objective to defend themselves is to not be seen.
Yeah.
You know, and as long as nothing sees them, nothing will kill them.
And the snakes that have lived on your property for years, you know, they have habits that they adjust according to things they need or risks they have in their environment, like you. So if there are areas you frequent and there's a lot of activity, they've learned maybe to avoid those areas most of the time.